Actually going to capture my... Oh yes, good. Head movements. Okay, so we're starting with something a little different today. Cold War's still pretty much empty, as are most of my other usual haunts. So I was just on Just Dogfight. I thought I'd do a bit of warming up before the stream. I could also use it as like a benchmark, see if DCS was going to behave itself. It mostly has, which is surprising. That may change over the course of the stream. But anyway, I hopped in the Mirage for a few rounds, and true to form, because I wasn't streaming, I had a fucking amazing run. Thankfully, I do record track files. Fingers crossed this one actually works. They do tend to desync and do some weird buggy shit, but I do have a track file, so we're going to watch that through while I wait for the server to fill up, and then after that, we'll probably hop over to Cold War. If that doesn't fill up, we might go somewhere else. I also have the TAC view for this, or at least I should, and that's going to be some interesting viewing, I think. So, I'm fighting a guy in an F-18 here at first. He does switch to a Viper later on when he gets sick of getting dunked, but I think I go 5 rounds with him or so, and then move over to the missile area. Hey Max. I'm not streaming it today, but I might be encourageable to stream it next week. So interestingly, for a Hornet, this guy's just going straight into the vertical, which I think is kind of what brought him undone here. You really don't want to be doing that against a Mirage. And right here you can see... Uh-oh. Like, he just flew right through my gun sight. So that's kill number 1. Class is most this week anyway. Well, there you go. Well timed. Yeah, I'm probably going to have a few things on over the next week or so. Plus, I want to get more IL-2 in. And I've still got a couple other things I want to stream as well. I've got like a whole list of shit that I was going to stream. I still got to do workers and resources as well. And I got to do ODST. And I want to do squad. Can't find the time for all of it. So he's respawned here, and unfortunately because he took so long to spawn in the first time, I'm basically behind his spawn. But I give him a chance to turn in there because I'm not a shitter. This is kind of one of the issues with the dogfight arena. The 1 vs 1 setup's much better because it's always guaranteed to be a neutral merge, but in the arena you pop up in different places based on when people spawn in and whether they know where the enemy spawn is. He's still in a Hornet for this round, I think. I actually lost sight of him here. And right there I picked him up. You can just see that flash against the horizon, and now he's firing. So right before he fired that burst, I reacquired him. Straight up into the vertical, he overshoots. And then back down on him. I've actually got quite a bit more speed here than I wanted, and I nearly G-locked myself. But thankfully I got away with it. One of the nice things about the Mirage is because the air brakes deploy so quickly, you can just slam the brakes. If you're going too fast, you don't want to G-lock yourself, just slam the brakes and decelerate through the turn. That also tightens your turn radius. It does kind of like a MiG-21 where it tightens its turn radius in on itself. You see here, he's starting to try and do some weird... Like, it's almost like he's trying to insider rolling scissors, but he's not in position for it. So I just displacement roll in behind him, and he's kind of in trouble here. At this point, I got enough speed to burn for the lead, and there's the shot. This is really the strength of the Mirage, I think. A lot of people still don't... Well, they still underestimate that. They still aren't fully aware of it. Yes, it bleeds speed in turns. No, it can't sustain with the Hornet. But you don't need to. You know, if you catch the Hornet when he's at the far end of his circle, you can just pull the nose around. As long as you've got enough speed, about 400 knots, just pull the nose straight across him and gun him as he comes through your crosshair. Of course, if you end up trapped in a 2-circle on the deck with the Hornet, you're screwed. You know, you're in big trouble. You got to just pick your escape window, disengage, climb up, get away from him, and reset the fight. But if you can catch him in that circle and you have enough smash coming in, there's really not much you can do about it. And you'll notice people who have fought me a lot get used to that, and so like Tawny, for instance, will roll as soon as he sees me approaching him, because he knows I'm going to take shots like this. That was a... I don't think that was a pilot snipe, I think I killed his mission computer, because you can see he's kind of spinning out of control there and he just punches out. A computer kill on the Hornet is basically a mission kill. It's either unflyable or has no weapons, depending on where you hit it. So I think this is where he switches to the Viper. There he is. You actually see his previous ejected pilot in the distance there, just on the left side of the HUD. So right here, he's almost giving me an angle, but I just don't want to pull. That would have G-locked me. So instead, I use the energy to come over the top, roll it over. Kind of like a really lazy displacement roll. Almost G-locked again here. You can see a bit of desync. Surprisingly little for Just Dogfight. This is the only time I saw him warping around. So that was pleasant. And I didn't have a shot on him there anyway. So here we have the F-16 realizing he's in danger, trying to climb for the moon. The problem with that is, well, there's two problems with that. One is the Mirage is very good at that as well. And the other issue with that, the guys in Lowblow's Discord have put a lot of science into the flight models, and according to them, the Mirage doesn't model ram effect properly, so it never loses power as it loses speed. Now, I don't know if that's true. They put probably more research into it than me, though, so I'll just trust what they say, I guess. But either way, it was a bad move from him, and it gets him killed. He just really... Like, against a Hornet, that might have worked, not against a Mirage. Even if the ram effect is correct, he didn't have enough separation. So I'm starting to think about fuel at this point. I'm getting kinda low. So you may also notice, I've turned anti-aliasing back on. What I did was I turned terrain shadows back to flat. It looks like arse when I'm flying low, but I did get a boost out of it, and that allowed me to turn anti-aliasing back on, and trees back up to 100%. We'll see if that stays true. As the stream progresses, it may just throw its shit out the window at some point, but at the moment, it seems to be working, and to be fair, although I do spend most of my time near the ground, where flat shadows really are noticeable, having the better frames and the anti-aliasing, I think, is better, because the AA means it's a lot less distracting for me. There he is, but you can see I've decided I'm going to land here, so I do a bit of a wing rock. I think he realized I was landing and decided not to gun me. I only had, like, I think 200 and something or 300 and something liters left, or kilograms, sorry, left at this point. So I decided I'd better land now, or I'm going to run out of fuel in the next fight if he drags it out. You can see here I'm actually almost kind of sort of doing it correctly. I'm still too fast, but like I was kind of trying to hold the AOA there. Dump a lot of speed on the approach. I actually come down a little slow there. I got close to a stall, but we saved it. Then my throttle bugged out and nearly launched me again. I still find it, like, I can on speed land the Mirage the way you're supposed to, which is similar to the Hornet, just the symbology is different. But I still don't like it. Like the Hornet, it's not as pronounced as the Hornet. The nose doesn't porpoise as much with the throttle, but I still don't like it. I usually just come in by eye and ignore all the symbology, ignore the AOA, and just hold my speed. And hold it a bit high. Yeah, we're watching replays at the moment. I just had a really good run on Just Dogfight without streaming, of course. If I was streaming, I would have had a shit show. So I'm just playing this through while I wait for some of the servers to fill up. It's a bit of a dead zone at the moment. There's like one guy in Cold War and he's just moving ground units around. I probably will post the TAC view of this on Discord, because this was like, I mean, Not to sound too much like a pompous asshole, this guy wasn't amazing, but it's a good demonstration of what the Mirage can do when you fly it to its strengths against someone that doesn't really know what it's capable of. And some really dirty fucking snapshots, too. I deliberately dumped a shit ton of speed there, which, against someone who was a bit more clued in, that would have been really dangerous, but because this guy's a bit greedy and he's pulling a bit too much, I know I can take advantage of that, and it doesn't matter if I drop my speed a bit, as long as I have the altitude to pick it back up, which I'm doing here. So I get back up to about 350 knots, which is maneuvering speed. Now you can see here, this would have worked against something that wasn't a Mirage maybe, but here I just go straight back in the vertical, use that to dump my speed. Watch this shot. His stab's gone. That was a kill. It's like the good old days. So, back when I was still a little small babby streamer and I only had like 10 viewers if I was lucky, I used to come on Just Dogfight for hours at a time in the Mirage, and those were the kinds of shots I used to make. So it feels good to get back into the swing of it. I've been flying the MiG-21 so much lately that my eye for the Mirage's guns has kind of like gone. But it seems it's back in action today. F-16 is such a meme, loses one stab and it's fucking gone. Yeah, one of the things I don't like about the 16, well actually it ties into two of the things I don't like. One of them is that the flight control system has no real capacity to deal with the aircraft once it takes damage, or if the Flickus dies, the aircraft's just fucked. Punch out, there's nothing you can do, right? Whereas with the Hornet, you still have the manual reversion, so you can still retain control over the Hornet and land it, even if the FCS shits the bed, or, you know, you lose some surfaces. Whereas the F-16, the second something goes wrong, it's fucked, and you're probably either getting captured or you're dead. Like, not for me. Not for me. Now, the Mirage is like that too, but the Mirage's fly-by-wire system, at least as it's modeled in DCS, but also from what I've read actually in real life too, is better than the F-16's. It's just generally less prone to causing unpleasantries. Now, I suppose if it fails, you're still going to be fucked, just like the F-16, but I prefer the Mirage in terms of flight controls. The other thing with the F-16 is the way the flight control system is rigged. It just... I don't like it. I don't know why. It's hard to explain. I don't like it. It's much more precise than the Hornet, so one of the things that I'm kind of ambivalent about with the F-18 is the mush in the controls. You can see here this guy is disconnected, so I just decide to fuck off to the missile zone. Instead of respawning, I decide to just do a Mark II run over there. So, yeah, the Hornet has like quite a lot of mush in it. Even with, like, I'm using the dead zones that, or not dead zones, the curves that Jelly gave to Pom, and then Pom passed them on to me. So it does mimic the actual aircraft to what extent you can with a Warthog stick with no extension. But it still feels mushy to me. Because I'm used to manual flight controls, right? I'm used to aircraft that do exactly what I tell them to when I tell them to. Having the computer kind of damping that response out just feels kind of weird. And in the Mirage as well, you don't notice that as much. It's much more responsive. It's a lot snappier. It's a lot more precise. There's not as much play in the controls, so to speak. With the Hornet, you really feel it. I guess partly it's also because it's limited to, you know, it's like 6.6G, I think, with stores on, or 7.5 with stores off. You can get the flight control system pull up to about 9 if you know, you outpace its G limiter, but it's still, like, you really notice you don't have a lot of control authority, or you don't have a lot of control response, I should say. It's not instantaneous. I'm not sure how I feel about that in the Hornet. I don't like the feel of it, but the aircraft responds to it well. It does what you expect it to do. And it kind of works with the way the Hornet flies. Whereas the F-16, I just don't like it in general. Like, something just doesn't feel right to me. This, of all the fly-by-wire aircraft I have flown in DCS, this is the one whose control system is rigged the best. It's just fucking amazing. Like, the Su-27 feels like a like a fast Su-25. Like, it feels really... I don't know how to put it. I guess because it has relatively low G limits as well. surprisingly low. It's like, I think 6 point something in full fuel and full loadout. And then, like, you can take it up to about 8. It has that same kind of weird feel, whereas the Mirage is just so precise. It's wonderful. It's just wonderful. And I have read from pilots, there was I can't remember his name now, but there was an exchange pilot from the RAF who had flown both American 4th gens and the Mirage, and he said the Mirage had the best flight control system out of all of them. And I can believe it, if this is even close to accurate. So here, because old mate decided he didn't like getting killed and quit, which is understandable, instead of respawning, I decide, you know what, I've still got nearly full fuel. Well, close enough. Why don't we do a Mark II sprint to the missile area? We'll see if we can get there. So I have to go over to Sanaki, land, refuel, rearm, and then we'll go fuck with the other guy in the missile area. I think there were 2 pairs in the 1 vs 1 areas, and then 1 guy on blue just killing AI in the missile area, so I thought I'll go fuck with him. And there's actually something interesting here I want to show you guys relating to the Mirage and high altitude flight, which I didn't notice before. So I had a learning experience today, which is pretty cool. One of the other things I'd like to point out is, if you notice, especially with Mustang shader mod, but also just in general, once you get up to about 30,000 feet, DCS actually starts to look pretty good, like ground textures wise. At low altitude, the ground textures are fucking terrible, right? It's just, there's no detail, it's really samey. You can see where the textures tile in a lot of places. But at this altitude, it actually looks really good, except for the fact the draw distance is terrible. You know, the fog's so thick around the horizon. But the actual ground looks really good from up here. So about, like, 30,000 feet is the sweet spot in DCS. Below that, the game looks terrible. Above that, the game looks terrible. But you get into that sweet spot, and oh, perfect. That's my bingo warning there. I set it down to 800. For some reason, the Mirage defaults to 2,800 kilograms, which apparently is standard procedure in the French Air Force. Like, apparently they do set it to 2,800. I guess because they usually fly with 2 bags on the 2000C. But it is kind of odd that you'd set it that high. So we're doing a bit of sightseeing up here. It's looking towards Turkey. We can't actually see Turkey, I don't think, from here, because the fog's so thick. So I'm sitting at 49,000 feet. The Mirage gets up to that altitude effortlessly. This big delta wing, combined with a reasonably powerful engine, it gets you up there so fast. And this thing will, like the MiG-23, the Mirage will accelerate until it blows up. You'll notice here in about probably a minute or two, I accidentally accelerate through Mach 2.25 and it starts screeching at me. If I'd hit probably 2.3, it would have fallen apart on me. I would have hit the thermal limits. When are we going to do a collab with Live 2D avatars and rake in that whip cash? Dude, those avatars are fucking expensive to get commissioned though. Like, that's actually, like, no shit, that's actually an investment. You have to put, like, I think Tripp said he was considering getting one done, and it was like 800 US. For comparison, like 5-10 years ago, I was going to ask Harry if he could do something for me, like a full-on game-ready 3D character model that would only just need animating if you put it straight into a game. And albeit I got mates rates, but it was 80 bucks. He just didn't have time to finish it. It was like, well, you know, whatever, I haven't paid you yet, so who cares? But it was 80 bucks for somebody that worked on several games which I play on stream. So I don't know if it's just artificially inflated because they know weebs will fucking spend out the asshole on that or what. But yeah, like it's really expensive. This is a replay, so my track IR is not actually live, it's my recorded track IR movements when I was flying. If it's anything like US Ops, you set the first bingo for Joker and then reset. Yeah, it could be actually. That would explain a few things. So I think the doorbell starts triggering at about, well, it's not a doorbell anymore. So I have a sound mod, which you can hear that phone ringing kind of sound. That replaces the doorbell, basically. Because apparently the doorbell isn't a thing the 2000C does. As much as I love it, And as much as I could believe the French having that in their aircraft, I think that's not actually what they use. So I think this one is actually technically correct, but it makes it sound more like an Airbus. I actually really like the doorbell. Like, I honestly like the doorbell. It's so hilariously French. It's partially inflation, it's partially because they have to basically redraw several versions of the image, so the avatar rigging even, for the animation stuff works correctly. So is that actually, like, fully 2D animated? Because I assume they just did it in 3D, but made it look like 2D through, you know, the same way that they do 3D stuff for actual anime, or like Western animation, instead of rotoscoping things, because rotoscoping's fucking expensive. It's Kataisi off my 10, 11 o'clock there. So we're starting to descend here. Now, you may have noticed there, until I passed about 39,000 feet, you may have noticed the engine was surging. I had my hand off the throttle, the engine was surging, and the reason it was doing that is because I came out of Afterburner at like 45,000 feet without thinking about it, and the engine did not like it. Now, it didn't flame out, but it didn't like it, and so until I actually descended below about 38,000 feet, no matter what I did with the throttle, it was just surging and then cutting out and surging and cutting out non-stop. So that, if you watch the RPM, which is just right at the radar warning receiver, go up to like 45,000 feet and cut the throttle back to mil and watch what happens. It's weird because I'm not 100% sure on the method, not true 3D in the conventional sense though. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if it's actually like legit animated, then I could see why it would be expensive. I mean, 800's still fucking steep, but I could see why it would be expensive. Like, hand animation is really fucking expensive. Here we see old mate that was like doing single player shit over in the missile area, molesting the AI. He got a bit too close to Sanaki, and he ate about 5 different SAMs for it. So that's Sanaki off my nose, basically under the crosshair right now. We're going to head over there and land, because I'm nearly out of fuel. In fact, the reason I throttled out of Afterburner up there and nearly fucked my engine is because I looked at my fuel gauge and went, oh, I'm only at Kataisi and I'm nearly out of fuel. So I just basically started descent, glided back down. I still had a bit of power on, I'm sitting about 75%, but I took the power off enough to save enough fuel for landing. Once they released the 109 G6 late for Battle of Normandy. Interesting. I mean, I'm probably not going to fly it, but cool to have more Germans to shoot at. The one I'm hanging out for is the Mosquito. I want the fucking Mosquito so bad. You can see the two little non-airfields at Kataisi there. I've landed on both of those. One of them with no fuel in the MiG-21. That was fun. I think that's the shortest short-field landing I've ever done, except maybe in the Viggen. I think the landing roll on it must have been less than... It was less than 500 meters, because it's an 800-meter runway, I think, and I didn't use the full length of it. I think my landing roll would have been about 300 or 400 tops. So for all the people who are on the Facebook groups with their fucking high for landing challenge in their Hornets and their F-16s, okay, have fun with that. Oh, are they adding the 410? Are we getting a 410? Okay, that's two things I'm excited for then. I really like the 410. It's actually a really, if you think about it, the 410's a really obscure plane outside of like legit aviation nerd circles. I didn't even know it was a thing until I would have been about probably, I want to say like 8 or 9, and I went to a hobby shop in Sydney and I saw a model kit of a 210. I was like, what the fuck is that? It looks so cool. There's a whole bunch of German twin-engine aircraft which played a reasonably major role in World War II and nobody fucking knows about them. It'll probably be an upgrade kit going for the 50 cal. Well, not 50 cal, 50 millimeter, sorry. Spit Mark 14. Okay, I'm actually excited for a lot now. Spit 14, Typhoon, P51B. Yeah, I can stand a P51B. And the 410. Yeah. I'm keen. That's going to be really awesome, actually. I don't know if I'd say twin props are, to an extent, but like, for instance, a lot of people know the P38, a reasonably large amount of people know the BF110, but things like the ME210, the ME410, the Errato 240, which I also had a model kit of. I think I actually bought it from the same store and I could only afford one or the other, so I got the Errato 240 and the Heinkel 219. The late war German night fighters are really interesting aircraft. Beautiful, like in a really... They're not beautiful in the same nice, sleek lines way as the British fighters, but they have like a rugged sort of... almost sci-fi look to them. I like them. Night fighters in general are really interesting. You can see here I'm getting locked up by something. I can't remember what N is on the RWR. I haven't actually looked up what the different things are. I know 5 is SA-15, which is really counterintuitive. I guess the French only like using single characters instead of, you know, like combinations of 2 or 3. I haven't actually looked up the list of what's what on the Mirage's RWR, so at the moment I'm totally tumbleweed with that thing. It is very French, though. Like, very, very French. A lot of people have got mods so that they have more useful RWR symbology, but if this is what the ADA actually uses, this is what I'm going to use. I'm not the kind of person to mod my game to make it easier, I'm the kind of person to mod my game to make it fucking harder, if that's realistic. Triangle plane. Oh, Fecal! You missed some crazy snapshots. So this is a replay I'm going through. I did a bit of Just Dogfight to warm up before the stream and make sure DCS would actually work. And wouldn't you know it, because I wasn't streaming, I had a fucking awesome run. The only time it ever happens. Went 5-0 in the guns area, and then came over the missile area because that guy disconnected. I will say one thing. You know, for all that we shit on War Thunder, and for all its problems, it would actually be a really enjoyable game if Gaijin were, you know, a little less bad at business decisions. Doesn't that sound familiar? One thing that's really good about it is it makes a lot of people aware of really underappreciated aircraft. I can make memes about shit like the F3H now, and people know what it is. Like, I didn't know what the F3H was fucking 10 years ago. Yeah, they've done some really impressive stuff with the graphics engine. Look, if they did some fixing to the flight models, and if they did a bit of, well, a lot of fixing to the economy and stop trying to fucking milk the game so hard, it would really actually start to improve into something I would play willingly and probably not rage quit for 6 months at a time. It's also the only place currently where I can drive a fucking T-64B that I know of. Hey YD, how are you today? We're just sitting through a replay while I wait for cold water fill up. I was on Just Dogfight earlier before the stream. Yeah, I'm not too bad. I haven't been sleeping too well. What else is new? But I managed to catch a couple hours nap before the stream, so fingers crossed I will not pass out in my chair today. Philosophical question? Shoot. There will either be a MiG-23 simulator or a T-64B simulator, very high fidelity and advanced models. Only one will ever be made. MiG-23. MiG-23. I can get my T64 fix in War Thunder, or when RHS put it in Armor 3. I don't need like a... As nice as it would be to have like a full fidelity actual T64, you know, flying is a bit more of a thing for me, so I'd rather have the 23 sim. But that is a pretty hard question. We're going to be sitting on the ground for a bit as I rearm and refuel. So, the missiles area in Just Dogfight spawns you in with 4 heaters in the Mirage, I think. But, little known thing, if you go to Sanaki, if you're on red, or if you go to Batumi, if you're on blue, you can actually arm up with whatever the fuck you like. At least as far as air-to-air missiles go, I think. So, while the other guy was off shooting down AIs, I decided, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to load a pair of 530s. So, that's what I did. Really tired today, work was so hectic, and now Ross is making me want to fly a Mirage. I've been, for the past couple of days, I've been struggling to stay awake for more than 7 or 8 hours at a time. I don't know why. It's just one of those weeks, I guess. More horny for planes than tanks. Yeah, that's true. But don't underestimate how much I love tanks. We just take a moment, by the way, to appreciate the Mirage's pilot body. Like, it's fucking amazing. I know it's mostly there for people that use VR, so they don't get all, you know, discombobulated at not seeing their legs, but I like having the pilot bodies turned on. It just gives you that little bit more immersion. The only issue I have is that, particularly because I tend to move my head position around in the cockpit for a better view, especially over the nose, quite a lot of the pilot models I find the camera clips through. On the Vigan, the oxygen mask is kind of sitting here on the guy, so my head clips through that a lot, or through his shoulders. I'd pull the camera back. On the Spitfire, because I'd pull the camera back and only a little bit up, it clips into his turtleneck, because he's wearing like a woolen turtleneck under his flying jacket. So, it can be an issue in some modules. The Mirage's is actually really good. I don't clip through it that often. What I'm really hoping will happen is, and I think from memory Heat Blur were going to try and do this with their pilots, but maybe I'm misremembering, is I'd love to see the actual pilot bodies like done through IK or something, so that as you move your head position, the entire body follows. You know, instead of just the arms and the legs and stuff being animated, the entire body follows your head position, so at no point can you clip through yourself, you know? That would be really cool, and I'd love to see that happen, but who knows? It's a lot of work to do, so I don't expect we'll see it anytime in the next 5 or 10 years, but I do honestly think, for all its problems, DCS will survive long enough that we'll see it one day. Because it just doesn't have a competitor, and I don't think it ever will. Welcome to Ukrainian Army for T64 High Fidelity and Advanced Model Sim. Yeah, but they plastered theirs in ERA. Now, ERA is cool and all, but hear me out. The best aesthetic is the T64B model 1976 with no ERA. It is just, oh, beautiful. It is a gorgeous tank. It is the best looking tank ever built. It's just, oh, I love it. And it sounds so good. Like the pained 5-cylinder screaming of that engine is just amazing. For some reason, oh. Wow, the backhander. Yeah, it is actually quite a... Like, it still has little bugs here and there, and Pom's catch call used to be Razbam quality as he flips switches without removing the safety guards. But it is actually quite a nicely done module, and, like, certainly visually it's high quality. I think they're going to redo the external model at some point they were talking about, which is going to be a nightmare for me, because I have to redo all my liveries, but more detail would be appreciated. I mean, the external model for this already is one of the better ones in the game, in my opinion, so more detail is more good. Then go to sleep, Jazz. Don't fuck up your sleep cycle as badly as mine. Go to sleep. How's the PC handling it today? It was okay on Just Dogfight. We'll see if that holds true on other servers. I think my CPU is probably still running at 100 on all 4 cores, but it's not throttling itself, so we're good. As long as no orange stuff comes out from under my desk, and the game doesn't start chugging, we're good. So, in the interim, while I kind of save up towards a new PC, I just spent a couple of, basically pocket change on a new in-box stock Intel cooler just to replace the one I have because those studs are broken on my one. So it should at least hold it in contact better with the CPU, and it should get a bit better heat dissipation. And also I've picked up another 80mm fan for the front of my case so I can get slightly better airflow. I don't think it's going to help much just because of the way my cases are laid out. I've got the PSU at the top, and then the video card's really long, and the hard drive trays are here, so there's like maybe that much air gap, and there's nothing to force the air through that gap up towards the CPU, but we'll see. It might help. Yeah, but fuck Coles. Yeah, I hear that. I hear that. Yeah. Well, I mean, I built this... This PC's been upgraded now and then. Technically, this PC was built in 2013 because I had to get a new motherboard. My old one popped. But when I originally got the parts and the case and built the PC the first time, it was 2010, I think. So it's pretty old school. And I've always had, you know, the PSU at the top of the case because I've typically always had older cases. So he defeated both my 530s there, but at least forced him defensive, and then the magic finished him. And at this point, I still have one magic left, but rather than hang around to fight an F-16 with one missile on board, I decided to head back and land. I was thinking of rearming, but I may have had a whoopsie on landing, because I was trying to do the on-speed AOA shit, and it didn't work out for me. I landed about 10 meters short of the runway and bounced awkwardly. Yeah. Like, my PC is pretty old school. So, as well as that, my hard drive tray is quite... Like, there's a lot of hard drive racks, basically. And because of where my video card sits, it basically hits one of them. I have just enough room for the power lead to go into the GPU, and then that's it. There's no other space in there. It's been alright. Like, honestly, it's done well. DCS is not a well-optimized game, and DCS is really one of the few things it struggles with. So, I am pretty impressed with how well it's held up over the years. I think before the 4670, I can't remember exactly what I had. I think it was an AMD. But like I said, my old... At least, I think... Yeah, I think that was the AMD beforehand. My old motherboard popped on me. And so rather than just getting a new motherboard and using the same CPU, I took the opportunity to upgrade my PC in general. But that was... Even that was 7 years ago now. If I get a new build soon, it could legit just give you my current PC. The only thing you'd have to do is add some RAM. It's only got 16 gig. It's got i5 8600K, yet to be overclocked in a 1080 OC. That could work. Postage could be a bitch though. I'll just let this play through to the end, then we'll check out Cold War. What's this? This is the tail end of a replay from Just Dogfight, because in true Ross fashion, the only time I can have an amazing run is when I'm not streaming. Literally, I did this before I hit go live, and now that I am streaming, it's probably going to be a dumpster fire. 1080 Ti being struggle with DCS while streaming in higher settings. So I'm on a 1050 Ti, and I kind of run, I guess, at medium settings, medium-high. I tend to change them back and forth every few weeks. So, for instance, today I've turned the terrain shadows back to flat, I like the default shadows because I fly at low altitude a lot, so it's really noticeable the way that the flat shadows clip through terrain. It looks really awful. But at the same time, I like having anti-aliasing. So, even just, you know, 2 times. So I decided I'd get rid of the flat shadows, but I'd put the anti-aliasing back on. I got quite a decent boost out of it. And then I realized I had enough of a boost, I could put trees back up to 100%, so I'm like, fuck yeah. And it was working okay in Just Dogfight. We'll see if it holds up on Cold War. We're going to do a collab stream of some game we both own. Maybe over Christmas, honestly. Like, I'm going to be real with you guys. It's probably going to be, like, towards the end of December before I do any streams of games that I, like, have been setting aside for a rainy day. There are a lot of games I do want to stream. I just... Between wanting to play DCS and wanting to do IL2 and then having a bunch of real-life shit, kind of the path of least resistance for me right now is just stick with what I know, basically. You know, stick with DCS, just get through the grind that way. If I start changing it up more, I've got to plan ahead, particularly for things like single-player games. I'm gonna, like, if I haven't played the game before, it's gonna be an issue because I don't like getting distracted from the story. Now, I've played about 4 or 5 times, so that's not that big of an issue. Albeit I haven't played it for, like, a long time. But things like Dishonored 2 and Mankind Divided, I haven't played them yet. And I kind of don't like doing my first playthrough of something on stream, just because it's distracting. But we'll see. So, for those who didn't see it in Discord, Max and Pom conspired to get me Hunt Down the Freeman. So I am now contractually obliged to play Hunt Down the Freeman at some point. So that might be next week, we'll see. Technically that might violate TOS on self-harm. Better not, Gurn. You better fucking not. So for some reason here, this is the other thing, and this is a demonstration of the way I learn an aircraft. I don't actually know the Mirage's systems very well. I only know the ones I need in combat. The ones I need in combat I know reasonably well. Not great, but reasonably well. Everything else I have little to no idea of, so my understanding of how the landing approach symbology works is you go PCA neutral, then app on the top row. Now, when I went PCA neutral, it was flashing 530 at me, even though both 530s were gone, and it wouldn't come up with the app. I don't know if that's a bug, or I don't know if it's because this aircraft is French, and it just decided I could go fuck myself, in true French fashion. But I couldn't get the symbology to come up, so I was trying to do the on-speed landing without the on-speed AOA symbology, which, as you're about to see, didn't work out for me. Mirage cockpit looks cool. I really like it. I really like the Mirage cockpit. And you've also got, like, the full-on spaceship ADI. Instead of a normal ADI, it's like the full-on one, the compass ball, and it's like you're in a rocket. It's awesome. So we're about to have a whoopsie. Here is where I should have put some power on. Like, don't trust the fucking flight path indicator in cases like this. It's actually fallen off the bottom of the HUD and caged itself. So right here, I land short, bounce, one wheel catches, and... Moral of the story, don't do on-speed AOA, just eyeball it. Wouldn't have broken the plane if I'd eyeballed it. Anyway, that was my Just Dogfight